Okay, we're up to Memvav Amid Aleph. Memvav Amid Aleph. Let's just chazrib a little bit. What we saw a machlokes the other day regarding a tree that was planted. Now, if the mountain itself, we said the mountain is mutter bahana, because it says al harim, what's on the mountain, but not the mountain itself. So what's on the mountain? The mountain itself, the hill itself, and we said we had a limit for a tree that a tree would, since it says abeit habdun, that is a special limit for the tree, because in the pasuk there were three things: there was a mountain, there was a hill, and there was a tree. So we had a limit for a tree. It's asa. Now, what happens? The Gemara says you plant a tree, and you don't plant it as an avodah zarah, and it grows. And then it's served as an avodah zarah. Okay, so what's the din? So if the tree was planted for avodah zarah, that's the classic asherah. If it wasn't planted for avodah zarah, that was a machlekes in the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi Glili and Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Tanakama says it's mutter, and Rabbi Yossi Glili says that it's asa. Okay, so that's what we saw. So again, something that is planted, it's planted not for avodah zarah. And now, it's important to tell you the difference between planting a seed and planting a tree. Good? If you would plant a tree, then it would be asaf avodah zarah, because it has a tfisas yad. It has the intervention of a human being. When you plant it as a seed, it's not considered that the person did anything. The seed is that's regularly what happens. But a person would take a sapling and put it in the ground. That's a tfisas yad. It's the intervention of a human. And that would go ahead and render it. It would be Yaseh Bahana. So we have a very fun, interesting shaila over here. So we're starting on Memvav. Tani Tana Kamei. You see the Taisus Behemoth Achiach opposite that, 2 lines down. Tani Tana Kamei the Rav Sheshes. We have a reciter of Brisa that said in front of Rav Sheshes, a reciter of Brises. In other words, we had people who go around. It wasn't written. The Gemara wasn't written. The Brises were written. And he would go ahead and he had memorized and he would recite it. Ha'akum ha'oivdim esaharim besagavois. Okay, an akum that serves mountains and hills. Hein mutarim, they're muta. Va'oivdeim besayif. Now, if you make something avodah zarah, you vis-a-vis yourself, the Bnei Noach is chayiv misa, and kol Bnei Noach they receive sayif. So good, it doesn't have a halacha of avodah zarah vis-a-vis being aseh b'hana, but you, the one who served it, will be chayiv. You're chayiv. But the mountain itself, as we saw, it's mechuber, it's created by God, and the mountain and the gavois we muta. Okay. Ves hazroyim ves hayirakois. But if a person goes ahead and serves zroyim, some type of growth, and yirakos, or vegetables, hein asurim, the vegetables become asur, v'oivdeim b'sayif, and those who serve it is b'sayif. Now, how are we viewing these vegetables? They're asur b'hana. It must be like Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, who says if you plant a tree, shaloi l'shem avodah zarah, and then it grows into an avodah zarah, that you chayiv. Because like the Chachamim, you would be pater. Like the Tanakama, you would be pater. Again, fellas, if you plant a tree, you plant vegetables, normally. Later on, they grow, you serve it, machloikis. Chachamim muta, Rabbi Yehuda asa. So the Gemara is assuming now, Rav Sheshes is saying, this din that we're saying that the Yerakos are asa, it must be like Rabbi Yehuda. Because like the Chachamim, it should be muta. Now, the question I would ask, and the Gemara is going to ask it in a second, is why do you assume it was planted normally and grew and then made into avodah zarah? I could just as easily say, what? It was planted l'shem avodah zarah, like a regular sheira, and then it will be asa. In other words, everyone's moed, if it's planted l'sheira, it's asa. Amalei. So, Damalach mani, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehudahi, that Amma, Elon Shinatul B'Seif Avdu, asa. That elon that is planted normally grows into an avodah zarah, it's asa. So too this yirakas, the assumption is they were planted normally and they grew into an avodah zarah. Fred Gemara, v'lukme be'ilon shenatu mitchila lekach. Let's Zetzerayin is speaking where the vegetables were planted lekach, they were planted the shem ashera, and therefore it has no bearing on the machloikis between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, because everyone's moida, if it was created l'shem kach, everyone's moida, it would be asar. Says you can't say that. Now again, there were two clauses, fellas, in the brisa. The first one was the mountain itself, and the second one was the vegetables. In both cases, the one serving it is dead, b'sayif, but the mountain is muta. Says the Gemara, Tiktani dum yudahar. We want a case of vegetables that is similar to the mountain. Mahar shlei notum mitchilas lekach. When Hashem made that mountain, He didn't make it the shem avodah zarah. Afhai, the vegetables also nami shlei notum mitchilas lekach. For symmetry reasons, which would make a lot of sense, because we always, let's say it's speaking in the same case. It's speaking the exact same case. Just like the mountain was not l'shem avodah zarah, and therefore what it's mutar, right? And therefore it's mutar, but the one who serves is asa. So too the zroyim, which were planted shaloi l'avodah zarah, should be mutar, but it doesn't say they're mutar. It says they're asa. Who says it's asa? That's Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, who says an elan that's planted normally and grows into an avodah zarah is asa. Geschmack. Itmar. Now, we're moida that the mountain itself is mutter. There's nothing talking about, right? The mountain, everyone says, alahar. What happens if a piece of mountain gets dislodged? I still remember driving up to the mountains. We used to do that years ago, many years ago. When I'd go up to the mountains, ich mein on the thruway, there's like netting, and there's a rack that is falling rack zone. Such a thing, I think ich mein that exists. Those rocks are coming up as a result of dislodging themselves. No one's up there hacking them. So you don't have an intervention of a human being, right? So how do you view a dislodged rock that was served as an avodah zarah? Do you view it as a talush or not? How do you view it? So that's the Gemara Shaila. Idmar. Avnei har shendidaldalu. An avnei har that got dislodged. Rashi says, Nekru me alehem. The key word is me alehem. Why? Because we don't want human intervention, fellas. Nekru me alehem. V'shtach ve'akum lehem. And then a guy served it. Okay, so it got dislodged, not by a person, and an akum serves it. So now, Bnei Reb Chia, the sons of Reb Chia, that's Yehuda and Chizkiah. Reb Yochanan, Chadama Aisurois, v'Chadama Mutarois. One says it's asa, and one says asa b'hana. One says it's mutar b'hana. Guys, the guy is dead. Okay, you got that? The guy did an action of avodah zarah. He's dead. We're not discussing him. We want to know, how do we okay, yeah, make it easy. Do we view the rocks like a mountain, or do we view it like vegetables? Right? Do you view it like the rock like a mountain or vegetables? But that's what we're discussing over here. Now, one says you view it as a mountain, and therefore it's mutar b'hana. One says it's viewed like vegetables, asa b'hana. Now, my time of the manam mutaros. Kahar. Mahar she'en by tfisas yedei adam. No intervention by a human being in mutar. Afhani she'en by tfisas yedei adam mutarim. So therefore it's mutar. In other words, even though it's talish now, there was no action done. Again, Rashi said nidalu me'aleihem. That's the key. There was no human intervention. Since there was no human intervention, we're going to view it simply what as a mountain. A mountain is what? Mutar b'hana, partik. You will ask, Malahar shekei mechubar. 1 second. You can't compare it to a mountain. A mountain is connected. This is dislodged. So how can you tell me it's like the mountain? So why do I need to prove, guys? Guys, I have to prove that something that is disconnected, it's not a reason to make it asa b'hana. Good? And that's the old taina. It can't be like a mountain. A mountain's mutar b'hana because it's mechubar. But if it's disattached, because it's talush, it should be aser. Now, what happens if I can prove to you that talush is also mutar? Then you're good. Behema toichiach. Behema will show you that talush is what? Is not a reason to ask something. Guys, a person bows down to an animal. What's the halacha? You'd all say it's asa b'hana, right? How do you know? Right. If a person bows down to an animal, it's called ne'evad. Fellas, we have a pasuk min abakar at the beginning of Vayikra. Listen to the lumdis. Ta'asr it as a carbon. Meaning, I needed a pasuk to say it can't be bought as a carbon. If it was asa b'hana, you don't need a pasuk. Of course, if it's asa, of course you can't bring it as a carbon. When I needed a pasuk to tell me it can't be a carbon, it's a raya that it's mutar b'hana. So what do you see? Something that is not mechuber, an animal, is mutar b'hana, even though it's nevad. So l'chayra, then therefore a mountain should be mutar. A rock on the mountain should be mutar. It's not mechuber. I don't care. It doesn't have to be mechuber. An animal's not mechuber, and it's still mutar b'hana. Guys, the raya, you hear the raya. We have a limud ta'aser a nevad, an animal that was served as a Avodah Zorah. You can't, because you can't aser a balchai. Only for a carbon. It can't be for a carbon. A carbon can only be bought from Mashki Yisrael, something that's mutar to Yisrael. So therefore I needed a pasuk, because it's mutar to Yisrael. So geshmak. So behema techiach. Behema will disprove you because it's talosh and it's mutar b'hana. Okay. Ayolias mala behema shekain balei chayim, and a balchai balas chayim can't be asa b'hana. Har yochiach. Har will disprove to you because the har is not alive. B'chazar adin. So I can't learn out one from the other, but I can learn out one from both. B'chazar adin lo rizeh krizeh. A mountain's not like a behema. Lo rizeh krizeh, and a behema is not like a mountain. A mountain's not like a behema. It's mechuber. It's not like a behema. It's a balchai. Hatzad shava. What's the tzad shava between a mountain and a behema? She'ein behem tfisas yidei adam. There's no human intervention. Umuta, it's mutar b'hana. Af kol she'ein b'tfisas yad adam umuta. So therefore, a dislodged rock through a limud, a combination of behema and mountain, I will learn that as mutar b'hana. So you push the shaila. I'll ask on your tzad shava. Mala tzad shava sheben shekein lein nishtanu mibriyasan. Fellas, a mountain is the way it was created. Is it created? An animal. The way it was created a dislodged rock. Nope. So Memela, I can't learn how to dislodge rock from a mountain and an animal. There's a chiluk. It's an episandish. There's something different. Good. Kenny, episandish, right? Episandish. Your episandish. It's like the far side, Kenny. It's like the far side, like epis andish. It's like it equals modna, I guess. Anyway, ask him behema balismum. Oh, geshmak, guys, a behemoth balismum. Is it what? Is it the way it was created? No. Very good. So therefore, you have a good kavachayma. In other words, just tweak behema and put in balmum. It's mutar b'hana. V'inami mibehema tama u'me'ilan yavesh. Or what? An ilan that's yavesh. Let's say you can learn out from an ilan that's yavesh. It's not lat mebriyasan. It's asa b'hana. It's mutar b'hana. Good. Umanda asa lahachi. Okay, so that's the one who says it's mutar. Okay. Umanda asa, the one who says it's asa. Again, we don't know. It's either b'nei Rechia or Rabbi Yochanan. One said asa, one said mutar. The reason one said mutar is because he learns it out from its shava. What's the one who says it's asa? Lahachi ksiv, the pasuk says, don't bring a tayev to Hashem's house. Vayisachayim kamahu shaketz tishaksenu v'saev tisavenu kicherim hu. We have a special pasuk to tell me that what it's shaki tishaksenu. Just find it disgusting. V'toyev tisavenu. The afagov the asi midina lehatera. Even though you learned it out beheta. In other words, I'm asking to you tzara shava. It's good. Nonetheless, leitasya. We go ahead, it doesn't come out. So therefore, that's the one who's asa. I have a pasuk that says it's asa. So again, in terms of a rock that's dislodged, machloikis tanoyim between Amaroyim, between Bnei Reb Chia and Rabbi Yochanan, the earliest Amaroyim. Now, the Gemara wants to, we didn't say who said what. The Gemara now is going to try to figure out that perhaps it's Bnei Reb Chia who said that it's mutter. We're going to try and infer that it's Bnei Reb Chia who said it's mutter. Now, Reb Chia had two sons, Yehuda and Chizkiah. Good. The Reb Chia, the Sharu, it must be the sons of Reb Chia that found this mutter. The boy Chizkiah. You see right away, that's how you know it's Reb Chia, guys. Chizkiah. The boy Chizkiah, Zakif Beitzel L'shtachevela. Guy takes an egg, goes ahead, he sticks up the egg for the purpose of bowing down to the egg, to serving the egg as an Avodah Zorah. Mahu. Now, Kasal Kedaitach, L'shtachevela, that he wanted to bow down to it, V'shtachevela, and he did bow down to it. He wanted to bow down to it, and he did bow down to it. V'komi boile, and what's the shaila? Haiz kifasa, Ihavi Maisa, Eloi Havi Maisa. Whether sticking it up, guys, an egg is what? Is not loin standard biyasan. An egg is loin, it didn't change, and what? And there's no tfisas yidei adam. What about the act of sticking it up? Is that considered tfisas bnei adam or not? In other words, when they stuck it up and they bowed down to it. So there was an action done to the egg. Now, so Avaloi zakaf loy. But if you didn't stand it up, loy misra, it would not be asa. So guys, look at me. We're comparing an egg to a dislodged rock. View the chicken, the hen, as the mountain. View the egg as the dislodged rock. By dislodged rock, one said it's mutter b'hana. Good. Says over here, Bnei Chizkiah, who is the son of Reb Chia, I took an egg, I stood it up, and the person bowed down to it, so it's asa b'hana. What happens if you didn't stand it up? Then it would be just like a rock that came out of a mountain, meaning there was no intervention whatsoever. Good. Mimela, if I didn't stick it up, I didn't stand it up, it's mutter, right? There's a raya that Chizkiah, who had the shaila, is the one who holds its mutter. B'nei Chia, it would hold its mutter. Again, Nachama, one more time. Our shaila, we want to know what's the din of a dislodged rock. Rabbi Yochanan and Bnei Reb Chia, one said asa, one said mutter. The Gemara is taking a stab at it that it was Bnei Reb Chia that said it's mutter. Chizkiah is one of Bnei Reb Chia. And we're tzustelling the following case. We're tzustelling a person that stuck an egg and worshipped the egg. Okay, well, how does this tzushtel to a dislodged rock? It's very good. A rock, a chicken, an egg, a dislodged rock. A mountain, a chicken. The tzushtel is very good. Now, the reason why it was asa here is because this is different than a dislodged rock. By the dislodged rock, there was no intervention whatsoever of a human being. It happened by itself. Over here, he went ahead and he stood it up. That act of standing it up is, if you consider it a maisa, right, then it's going to be asa b'hana. What happens if you didn't do that maisa? So you have the exact same sushtel, and it's mutter. So, and who's bringing this down? Chizkiah. So it must be Chizkiah. Bnei Chia hold this mutter. Very geschmack. One more time. Kasal kedaitach. The Bnei Chia, the boy Chizkiah. Zaka, first slide line. Zaka beitzel l'shtachves la mahu. Kasal kedaitach l'shtachve la v'shtachve la. You slid it up. You wanted to bow down to it, and you did. The komi boile. Haiz kifasa yihavi maisa lo yavi maisa. Is it considered intervention or not? Avaloi zakaf loy mitzra. Shmamina b'nei Reb Chia the shari. Says Maloi. La'olam eim lach. I'll tell you, b'nei Reb Chia the asrei. Right? They told it's aser. Okay. V'hishtachevela afagav the loy zakfa asura. And if they would have bowed down to the egg, even without human intervention, it would be asa. The same way, if you bow down to a dislodged rock from a mountain, it would be asa without human intervention. So, in other words, this. So, he took the egg and stood it up, and he didn't bow down to it. In other words, you know why it's mutter? Because he didn't do anything. You know it's muta bahana because he didn't do anything. But einachinami, had he served it, it would be asa. So again, if he served it, it would be asa even without skifa, So here's the question: if it would be asa without skifa, without standing it up, what is standing it up to do with the paisati in China? You can tell me it's asa. If he doesn't stand it up, certainly it's asa if he does stand it up, right? So what's the standing up do over here? So says the Gemara, I don't understand. Ulaman, this is going to be a machlokes later on, guys. Ilaman the Amar avoidis kechavim shel Yisrael asura, right? Asura miyad. The guy, the Jew, he went ahead and he stood this up, right? He stood it up. He stood it up. Right away, it's asa. Right away. Avoidis kechavim shel Yisrael asura miyad. So it's asa immediately. So why does he have to stand? Once he set it aside as Avodah Zorah, you don't need to stand it up. Ilaman da'ama at shetavad, you have to actually serve it. Halei palcha, he did not serve it. So mimanushach, it's either asur or mutta. What are you telling me, Bnei Reb Chia? You're telling me if he stood up an egg and he didn't serve it, and therefore it's mutta because he didn't serve it. He goes, l'chayr is telling you machlokes. There's a shita that you don't have to serve it, right? There's a shita you don't have to serve it. Or there's a shita that you do have to serve it. So Mimanav Shach, what are you telling me? It doesn't make any sense. So, like Tzricha Kigoin, Shezakav Beitza Lishtach Vela, you stood it up, Veloy Hishtach Vela, and he didn't do it. Ubo Ovid Kechavim, came along a guy, Vishtach Vela. Now, guys, we learned the following. We learned a person Ein Adam Oisa Davar Sheina Shaloi. If I have a cow and one of you guys go over and serve the cow as an avodah zarah, you become a Hindu, right? You can't ask my cow. You can't do that. So I have an egg. I stood it up as an avodah zarah. I didn't serve it. A guy came along and served it. How could he answer it? And the answer is since I stood it up, it's a gili milsa. I want to use it as an avodah zarah. That action of standing it up makes it roy that someone else who doesn't own it can come ahead and ask it. That's the chiddush over here. That only if you stand it up, right? Ki hadam Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel.
Would the same thing apply to a rock if he stood up the rock?
Same thing. Watch. Yisrael shezakaf leveino l'shtach vela. A Jew that stuck up a rock, a brick. Uboy v'kechavim b'shtach vela asura. V'kami boyle leveinahu deminkras kifasa. Because again, a brick, guys, here's a brick, right? This is the way the brick lies. Now you go ahead. It's minkar, this was stood up for a reason, right? It's recognizable it was stood up for a reason. An egg, no. That's the chiddush over here. I have a beit saloi, idil malashna, that's the shaila. In other words, this doesn't go into the shaila whatsoever of whether something that comes off without tfisas yad, in other words, there's no bearing whatsoever. We don't know who said what. We don't know Reb Chia said asa, whether they said muta or Rabbi Yochanan said asa, says muta. You wanted to bring me a raya over here that the shailu whether it's zakif is a maisa or not, but everyone hold if you didn't stand it up, it would be muta. That's not the case. The case is what? The case is you stood it up and a guy came along and served it. Buy a brick if a guy did that, it would be asar. Over here, maybe since it's not so recognizable, it's not. So, but this has no bearing on our case. Because again, it's a shaila of the guy serving it as an avodah zarah rather than whether innately it's mutabana or asabana. Okay, a little background. I gave you a little bit already, but a little bit more. A nevad, an animal that is served cannot be a carbon. You could use it on your back barbecue, but you can't bring it as a carbon. Because we have a pasuk min habakar. Right? What happens if you serve a brick? Is there a din of nevad by an inanimate object or not? Is it only a din in a carbon? Or no, is a molam de shaila? And sveitens, since you can't bring it as a carbon, is the din of nevad only by the carbon? Or even the machshire carbon? You can't have a carbon without mizbeach. You can't have a mizbeach without rocks. So in other words, it's twofold step. It's a two-step process. One, it's shaykh nevad by an inanimate object, and two, the inanimate object is it shaykh by something that's din of nevad is only by a carbon, or even the machshire carbon, that what is used to be machshire carbon. Boy Romi Barchama, Hamistach Belahar, Avon of Mahu. What's the din of its racks? Lamizbeach. Now this would first of all there'd be a huge, in order, guys, for the Mizbeach, you can't have anything that was yud, H-E-W. You can't have anything yud by iron. So this is the mitzias of this case would be very, very difficult. You'd have to have smooth racks that you put in a mold. Remember that we spoke out. Remember, we learned it in Zvachim a million years ago. You put it in a mold and you threw the rocks in and you threw cement on top of it, right? Okay. Anyway. Yesh neva b'mechuber etzel gavoya, or ein neva b'mechuber etzel gavoya. That's one shaila, fellas. If the din of an inanimate object, right, by mechuber, something that's connected, or what? Im tim tzalem yesh neva b'mechuber etzel gavoya, machshiri carbon ke carbon dam yeloi. Do we view what? Machshiri carbon or not? In other words, this rock was considered mechuber l'karka. If there's a din of nevad, is a din of nevad or not? And if there is a din of nevad, in other words, just like you go ahead and serve an animal, it's asa. So to the rock, if you serve, would be asa to be mutter by no, but you couldn't use it for the mizbeach. Hanoah is for hedyet, for mizbeach not, or for kaitshim. And then sveins, can you use it for machshire mizbeach? You know, it's maybe nevad's only a din in an actual carbon and not in the ancillary parts that is necessary for the carbon. Amar Rava Kal V'chaymer. Guys, halkup. The Torah says the following. Guys, listen up. Leisavi esnan zoyneh u'mechir kelev beis Hashem lekecha. Anything that a zoyneh has gotten for her services, or you exchange something for a dog, whatever that exchange is, you can't go ahead and bring it Beis Hashem Elokecha. Good? Beis Hashem Elokecha. You can't bring it. Now, the Gemara is going to assume, and this is the assumption, that the Esnan, whether she was paid in something that's talush, disconnected, or paid in something that's mechuber, right, is usher. But we're going to learn mechuber, we're going to take that as an assumption. That something, an Esnan that's mechuber is usher. Of course, it says, fellas, Beis Hashem Elokecha, mashma base, something like a bias, which is mechuber lekarka. So, says the Gemara, Amar Rava Kal V'chaymer, Uma Esnan, shemuta b'tolish lehedyet. Right? An Esnan's wages, or something that's dislodged, anything she has that's mobile, movable, metaltel, to a hedyet, an individual, there's no issa hana whatsoever. Asa b'mechuber legavoya. Okay, that's an assumption, guys. This is the assumption that it's asa. It never says that esnan mechuber is asa. It's an assumption based on Beis Hashem Elokecha from the pasuk. This is the key to the sugya. Getting this. These words are an assumption. You're assuming that there's no difference by anything vis-a-vis the Beis Hamikdash. An esnan would not be permitted. Whether it's talish or mechuber, it would make sense. There's no difference because the Torah doesn't make a distinction. So madach, what esnan betalish by a hedyet's muta, by mechuber it's asaf to gavaya to Hashem tichsev leisavi esnan zaynu mechekelev, and the keywords are Beis Hashem Elokecha loishna talish loishna mechuber nevad, an animal that's served she'asa betalish lehedyet, right? It's asa betalish lehedyet. Einay din she'asa b'mechuber legavaya. Why is asa betalish lehedyet? I guess it's not an animal. Nevad, I was thinking of an animal, and an animal is balechai. I'm talking about nevad, something that's not a balchai. Nevad she'asa betalish lehedyet. Something that was served as another by the Zorah betolish is also to hedyet. Ain't it din shasa b'mechubel gavaya. So we're learning out, fellas. We're learning out mechuba from. We're learning out mechuba from esnan, just like esnan b'mechuber ligavaya is asar. So too what? So too nevad b'mechuba would be asar. Guys, one more time. Your assumption is that mechuber of esnan zasa, even though tolish is muta, by hedyet where tolish is asa, ein adin mechuber is asa. That's the gavachayna. Amir Rav Huna Breda V'Shua LeRava Oichiluf. I could say the opposite. You're assuming that esnan b'mechuber is asar. I could say the following: Uman nevad she'asa b'tolish etzel hedyet muta b'mechuber l'gabaya nevad, which is asa, where it's disattached to a human, an object that served as a avodah zarah is asa for a hedyet. Yet it's muta b'mechuber. Again, why would I say that it's muta b'mechuber? Why would I say it's muta? Because it doesn't say esnan's asa, right? Man never shasa b'tolish etzel hedyet muta b'mechuber l'gavaya shenemar Elohayim Eloharim v'Elohayim Elohayim loishna lehedyet loishna l'gavaya esnan shemuta b'tolish lehedyet ein adin shemuta b'mechuber l'gavaya. I could learn out that it's muta. I'm not explaining well. It's not so easy. The first brisa was predicated upon that the esnan mechuber is asar. It doesn't say that. If I take away that assumption, I can switch around the whole thing. If I take away that assumption, I can switch around the whole thing and learn that what the esnan mechuber is muta, and therefore the nevad would also be muta, and therefore you have a raya. Let's see it in the words again. Oichiluf. Let's switch it around. Uman nevad. Avodah Zorah. She'asa b'tolish etzel hedyet. A thing that's disattached. If you serve avodah Zorah, is also to a regular individual. Muta b'mechuber l'gavaya, because the mountains are muta. Shnemar Elohayim Eloharim Elohim Elohayim. Loishna lehedyet loishna l'gavaya. Esnan shemuta b'tolish lehedyet. Person is no problem with an esnan. Ein adin shemuta b'mechuber l'gavaya. There you go. The esnan is muta l'gavaya. Now, what about the limud from Beis Hashem? I need Beis Hashem for a limud. Beis Hashem lekecha prat lepara sheida bol lebeis lebayis the Rabbi Eliezer. In other words, guys, you could buy an esnan. You could buy a paraduma. Could be if a person gets a paraduma as an esnan, you could use it because it's not Beis Hashem because the paraduma is born in Har Zeisim. The Rabbi says rikuyim, right? And the Chum says rikuyim. Okay, so we have two possibilities over here. We have Rav is limud l'chumra. We have Huna Rav Yeshua is limud l'kula. Rav is limud would be that it's that nevad b'mechuber is asar, and Rabbi Huna Rav Yeshua is limud would be its mutter. Because those are two ways to go. Again, since it doesn't say openly about what esnan b'mechuber and everything's contingent upon that, so I have two ways to go. If I go with Rava, it comes out l'chumra, that nevad b'mechuber is asar. If I go according to Rav Huna Rav Yeshua, nevad b'mechuber will be mutter. Okay, says the Gemara now. Amalei said Rava to Rav Huna Rav Yeshua, Ano kamina l'chumra b'yad amrit l'kula. I said l'chumra that nevad b'mechuber is asar, and you say it's mutter. Kula v'chumra l'chumra parchinan. When you have a kal v'chaymer, right? When you have a kal v'chaymer, you're always going to go ahead and go l'chumra. Gemara is going to question that. You say always go l'chumra. I'm going to question that. Okay, fellas. In order for a person to get tahar from paraduma, what does he need? A spritz on day 3, a spritz on day 7, a mikvah, and night. Good? Very good. Can a person have a spritz on Shabbos? Let's say his 7th day comes out on Shabbos. Can you spritz on Shabbos? Bidrabanan, you can't tikkun mana, like tikkun garva. You're going ahead and you're finishing the guy. You're making the guy complete. So dirabanan, no can do. Good. Can a person bring the korban pesach on Shabbos if your dalit falls on Shabbos? And the answer is yes. The mayadai. Let's say you have a guy whose 7th day falls out on your dalit. Can you spritz him or not? a guy whose seventh day falls out on your dalid, can you spritz him? Can you spritz him or not? That's the question, right? Machloi l'chayra says Rabbi Eliezer, if shchita is the raisa is daicha, shvus the rabbanon for sure is daicha, and therefore we'll go l'chumra and say he has to bring the korban pesach. He has to get spritzed and bring the korban pesach. Says Rabbi Akiva, I can go the oichilif. I can go the other way. If with the rabbanon I won't let you spritz, I certainly won't let you shecht. If the rabbanon you can't spritz, kal v'chomer what? That I won't let you shecht. So the only reason we're bringing this is an oichilif. But what do we see over here? Rabbi Eliezer is going lechumra, and Rabbi Akiva is going lekula, and we're going lekula. Says the Gemara. Amalei Pablo Rava. B'chal heicha lekula v'chumra lekula loy parchinon. Parchinon means learn the kal v'chomer. V'hazah the Pesach, the pligi Rabbi Eliezer of Rabbi Akiva. Though there's a sabah lechumra, meaning you spritz the guy and you bring the korban. The kamachayev legavra. Rabbi Akiva lekula upata, and he patas the guy. V'kaparach Rabbi Akiva lekula ditnan heisha Rabbi Akiva oichilif. Now, what did he say again? Madach it's deraisa shchita. It's only doich derabbanan. That's what Rabbi Eliezer said. And what did Rabbi Akiva say? Umahazashi mishum shvus ain't doich Shabbos. Shchita she deraisa like kol shekain shouldn't be right. Like kol shekain shouldn't be doich Shabbos. Madach we won't be doich for derabbanan. Certainly we won't be doich for deraisa. And we know that's not true. But what do you see from over here? You see you're going lekula. Says the Gemara. No, Hasan Rabbi Eliezer Gamrei. Rabbi Eliezer had taught Rabbi Akiva. He had taught Rabbi Akiva that what? That you don't spritz the guy. And Rabbi Eliezer forgot his limud. He forgot that you don't spritz the guy. For us, Rabbi Akiva la'atkare. And Rabbi Akiva, by the means of a kal v'chomer, wanted to go ahead what? And remind him. So no, we're not really going lekula. By asking it in this way, he was reminding him, right? He was reminding him. He came to notice, guys. There's no way Rabbi Akiva held what? That shchita is not doicha. We pass on shchita is doicha. There's no way we're saying that. Rabbi Akiva wanted to go ahead and tell him that based upon the idea that if you say that spritzing is asa, v'hainu to amalei, and that's what Rabbi Eliezer said after he was reminded, Rabbi, said Rabbi Akiva to Rabbi Eliezer, al tachbireni b'shas hadin. Don't go ahead, don't deny when I'm going to have what you taught me. This is what I got from you. Hazor shvus is a shvus, ve'inu doichas a Shabbos, and it's not doichas Shabbos. Not that again, fellas. Listen to the kavachom he's making. Madoch the shvus, the rabbanon is not doicha. Certainly shchita shouldn't be doicha. It's not true. Shchita is doicha. Really, what Rabbi Akiva was telling Rabbi Eliezer, you're saying that it is doicha hazah. It's not. He was reminding him in this way that you told me it's not. He got sick, Rabbi Eliezer. He forgot this din, and Rabbi Akiva is reminding him. So instead of saying outright to him, right, you taught me that what it is doicha, right? That you taught me that it's not doicha, and now you're changing your mind. So what did he do? He said a kal v'chomer lekula. What was the kula? That you're not going to bring the korban pesach. But it's not true. Of course, the korban pesach you're going to bring, and that's the raya. So he told him kach mikublanim imcha that what that hazah is not doicha, and therefore you have to wait to bring the korban. But of course, the korban pesach is doicha, right? Ve'enu doicha is Shabbos. Okay, we'll stop over here.